Action!
Good morning, Missouri, and all our listeners. This is Dr. Cyndi, and yeah, today is my first solo without Pastor Steve. Good morning, Pastor Steve, if you're listening. um, Today, we're going to get right into it because there is so much that I want to talk about. That we're going to be doing a series on it, and it's going to be called. It's called "Shattering the Lies." Um, Over the Christmas, New Year's holiday here, the Lord has really been speaking to me, and I've been seeing so many things just coming up and in my reading and what I've been watching and looking at and observing. And I thought, this is insane that we need to stop this cycle that is still going on, and people are still continuing in this, even though they say, oh, we're starting a new year, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, but that's not happening. We're still repeating the same thing. So I want to bring these issues up. Um, Today's issue is going to be about the religious spirit. That's very dangerous, and it is actually very popular as well. There are a lot of people that do not want to, that are so steeped in their religion, their church, that they will not allow themselves to let go and listen to the voice of Christ and follow what the Lord wants, that they're just so stuck in things from from their teachings, from their different denominations, that they're not open to what Christ wants them to do. And when the Lord says, okay, I want you to go this way now, I'm putting you in a different direction, they're going to look at, well, that's not how we do this here, or that's not what the church says to do. So they're not going to do it. So they're going to be out of sync with what the Lord, and they put more trust in that, and that can be very dangerous to your walk. And that's what I want to talk about today. When we look at in the Bible and we go back, how much power, how much control at one point, okay, when they had the law of Moses, okay, it was needed, right? It was needed. But you saw how much control and how much power that the Pharisees had. And as we go into the New Testament, and like when they show like Jesus of Nazareth, and like the Passion of the Christ, or even reading in the Bible, it's like the Pharisees were always lurking. They were always there. They were always around, just watching everywhere. And they were always in situations, when it came, when Jesus was, doing his ministry. They were always, why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? We've got to stop him from doing this. Because he was pulling people away from that control, that spirit of religion, and freeing them. And the Pharisees didn't want that, even to the point where it was so engrafted that people, that even the disciples were caught up in it. When they were on their way to, I can't remember what city it was, they had to go through Samaria. And the disciples did not want to go through there. They said, oh, do we have to go? And he's like, yeah. And so when Jesus saw the woman at the well, and the disciples took off and said, we're going to get something to eat, they completely missed the whole beauty of what Jesus was going to do and what he was doing. That when he went to the Samaritan woman, she couldn't figure out, why is he talking to her? They're not supposed to be talking to each other. That's just how it is. And he didn't, that didn't even make a dent to Jesus. He saw her, and he wanted to speak to her, and he wanted to witness to her, which he did. And it was a beautiful thing. So he went, he saw right through that. But the disciples did not. The disciples ended up to where they ended up just paying attention. Jesus, you got to eat. Come on, Jesus, we need to go. They didn't even say hello to this woman. They didn't give this woman the time of day because of how they were programmed. And it was like, you missed out. You missed out on something you could have witnessed. You could have listened to what has just happened, but they missed out on things. And that's another thing about the religious spirit. You miss out on so many things. There's so much control. That spirit wants to keep you from Christ. It showed that even in the New Testament, as we go on after Jesus was crucified, and we go into where when Paul would speak to the churches, then became the Judaizers, where they were going behind when Paul would minister to the churches and they'd leave and go elsewhere. There they would come and say, hey, you got to do this. You have to be circumcised. Going in and trying to undo, trying to bring them back into that religious spirit, so where there is control and where they can be watched and they can hold that over them. I've seen in many churches today, still to this day, where people are they're not free. They're chained by this religious spirit, by a lot of the doctrines and canon laws of their church, where I see women that are bound and are absolutely terrified that if they cut their hair, they're going to go to hell. And it's like, where did you even get that idea? Well, they teach us that you have to grow your hair long. Well, that your hair doesn't have anything to do with your salvation, your relationship with the Lord. If you cut your hair, you cut your hair. He's concerned with your heart. He makes that very clear when you look into in the Bible. But there's control over that. There's fear in that. They put that fear in there, just like Catholics. Before I step into anything else, let me make myself clear here on this show. I can't speak for everybody else's show, but for High Octane, this isn't a Catholic show. This isn't a Baptist show. This is an Episcopalian, Lutheran, um, uh, uh, angelic, any of those. It's no denomination at all. I'm here to speak about Christ and teach about Christ. That's what this is all about. There's no denominations here. So I just wanted to make that clear. I speak about the Catholicisms a lot because I was born and raised in it, and I was a victim of it. And I say that I, I don't like to use the word victim, but I I was under all of that, where I for quite a while, I the life that you live as a Catholic, and then you just go around, and as soon as you put that, well, I'm Catholic. Well, I'm Catholic. Oh, well, I'm Catholic. But as you get older and you start looking at things, and you're like, well, okay, every Friday night they had on the church grounds, they would have a Vegas night with a big beer tent, and then they'd have another tent where they had, the gambling, the roulette wheel, and playing cards, and all of that. And then he's like, "Oh, we're raising money for the church." I'm like, "But you're gambling and you're drinking on the church grounds." But somehow, hey, it's okay because they're raising money. That's just what they do. Oh, it's fine. This money is not bad. This money goes to the church. It is bad. It is bad. So much so that the Catholic school I used to go to, high school, I went there one year. Every year they would put on a fair, and they'd have the carnival come. Well, it was quite shocking that the Catholic Church allowed a fortune teller to be on the grounds. And they said, "Oh, that just comes with the carnival." But see how they allowed that kind of thing to be in there. This is all kinds of their parishioners, and it's like, "Oh, it's all in fun." See, they that opens the door to other things, and the Catholics just didn't think anything of it. And it's like you've got to step away from that. When I finally decided, um, when I was younger and I was old enough, um, and I got told, as Ladina told a little bit of my story, uh, when they told me that because I got divorced and I married out of the club, out of my faith, out of the club, um, that he couldn't even give me absolution. He couldn't tell me that I was forgiven. It was like, you know what? That was the horrible torture that you either have to just, do it their way, or, you're kicked out. Oh, we don't know what's going to happen to you. And from that point, I hit the ground running, and I thought that's horrible to do to people. And another, I know there's a lot of, as you go south, there's a lot of Southern Baptists, and there's a lot of Baptists that go toe to toe with me, on several issues, and they go toe to toe with me at my front door. And it's a pretty interesting debate. Sometimes I wish I could tape it, but they're so steeped in their legalism of everything, even down to music, and the beating of the drum. And I thought, you're going too far. What, oh, well, and they're watching. Are you playing cards? Are you doing, what are you doing? Are you doing this, or are you watching TV? Are you doing this and this? And it's like, what, getting wrapped up in that. I don't know if any of you remember. I was younger when, oh, maybe a baby, when he had come out. Jeff Fenhold, he's not with us anymore, but he told an amazing his testimony. I loved him after when he came out, and I got to hear his testimony. I'm like, oh, I remember the group that he used to be. I never listened to. I was too young. I didn't know him as a rock and roller, but I knew him when he got saved. And when he was telling his testimony, he talked about how he was going to do a show, and it was right across the street from this church he was in. And he said the Lord called him up to the altar, and he didn't understand what it was, but he said, God, if whatever you want from me, just do what you want from me, whatever it is that you want. He was ready, willing, right then and there, just as he was in his long hair, rock and roll clothes, and all the garb. And he was at the altar, willing to have a meeting with Jesus. He felt the Lord had called him. He didn't understand it, but he felt the Lord had called him. So what happens? Because of, oh, we can't have this, and that religious spirit, the pastor came down and said, I know who you are. You're in that rock and roll band. Instead of looking, my gosh, this guy, hold the phone. This guy is a rock and roll guy, and he's up here at the altar, and he's wanting to give his life to Christ. The pastor kicked him out, told him, don't come back here, get out. Look what just happened. He just caused, had he, had the pastor maybe did it differently, and then said, and laid hands on him and prayed for him, maybe we don't know, maybe because it had to go a different way, but just maybe he would have gave his life there, and he would have turned around and said, I can't do the show anymore. I can't do this anymore. I can't sing those songs I used to sing anymore. I need to go tell the group I quit. But he didn't. He ended up saying, get out of here. You don't belong here. Get out of here. And kicked him right out. So what do you how you think he felt? So, and the whole blessing that Jesus wanted to give him was ruined, but was blindsided by a religious spirit. You know, it it takes away so much when I'm everything here says here. This is one of my favorites about a religious spirit. In Galatians 3:1-3, it says in the ESV version, "O foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? It was before your eyes that Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified. Let me ask you only this: did you receive the Spirit by works of the law or by hearing with faith? Are you so foolish? Having begun by the Spirit, are you now being perfected by the flesh?" And then, so with that, even at that point, are you putting more into? Are you putting more into your flesh, hanging on to your religion, what your church teaches you, your church rules, the Canaan laws, or are you opening yourself up to what God wants for you? Taking that step of faith and going, okay, I trust you. I trust you, Lord. I'm gonna go this way. I'm gonna step out of this, and your church will go, well, why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? And I can remember being at a spirit at the church that I got saved in, and people were not too hip with dancing at the time. It was still like, oh, what is this all about? And Steve could tell you, because we did that, went to it together. It was called the Sunlight Club, and they started it, and it was a place where you could go. You paid $5, and you brought pop or you brought chips or something, and they had a DJ play Christian music. It was just Christian music, and different people would come uh, from like different churches, and they would come to this, and they would dance just like you would go to a club and dance, but it was all Christian music, praise and worship. Michael W. Smith, Brian Duncan, all these different Carmen, all those, and they had the best time. Well, all of a sudden, some of the churches got wind of it. I mean, there was nothing bad in it. Everybody had fun. People met other people from different churches. They got to fellowship. They were singing praise and worship songs. People were praying for one another. They had a great time on the weekend. There was nothing wrong with it. Nothing. Well, some of the churches got wind of it. Some of the pastors got wind of it and shut it down. And we could not understand why did you shut that down? We're not doing anything wrong. We're having a lot of fun. And it was the issue of dancing. And it's like, what is wrong with dancing? David danced, and they were like, well, that's a whole different thing for what he did. And it's like, but there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. And, it's as bad as that their eyeball is so on, watching what everybody's doing. And, oh, you better not do this. And better. They have to have control. It's demonic. It's demonic. Well, what ended up happening with that story is we rose up and fought against it. I talked to my pastors, and he had asked me, well, what goes on there? And I said, come see for yourself. It is a great time. It's a great time of fellowship. It's a great time, you know, uh, listening to the Christian music, meeting people from different churches around the area, and just having a great time. Hip hop, chips, whatever. There's no drugs. There's nothing like that. It's just a good time had by all. But it was dancing, and they did come and check it out. And you know what? They left alone, and it went on for quite a while. It spread, and then it just kind of died down on its own. There wasn't enough people to keep it going, I guess, or what have you, or finding a venue to be able to rent it every week. So, but they came after that and couldn't figure out why there was no harm in it. This spirit that the Lord is bringing on revival. He's opening up doors for people. He's reaching people. People are stepping out, but they're meeting these, like, the I'm just gonna say it, the pulpit and the pen, or whatever they're called, constant criticism of everything, everybody. This, they're not doing this, they're not doing that, speculating, putting in that spirit to try to kill what God is doing. Don't get caught up in that. It is a lie. It is a lie that needs to be broken. It needs to be cast out. When you're speaking to the Lord, you listen to what the Lord wants you to do. Not what your church is telling you, you need to be doing this, or you need to be doing that. Or if you decide to leave this church, don't be surprised if bad things happen to you. What a horrible thing to say to somebody. Maybe somebody is growing, and they're not getting what they want from one church, that the Lord is moving them to another church where they are getting what the Lord wants them to have. But to threaten people and tell them, hey, if you go here, this isn't going to happen here, or if you do this, this is going to happen. Even down to what people eat, the fasting, the whole, I mean, they've just turned everything upside down. And it's like, when you look at the Bible, it's like, well, that's not what the Lord says. That's not what the Lord said. And you know um even on the Sabbath, even on the Sabbath, Jesus healed on the Sabbath. They ate wheat on the Sabbath, and there was the Pharisees. What are you doing? Why did you do that? You're not supposed to do that. And then if they can't get you for this, they're going to say, like, just like they did with Stephen. Stephen did nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. So what ended up happening? Well, what can we get him on? Well, let's lie. Let's lie and say he blasphemed. So they will lie to be able to carry out their power and their control over people with that religious spirit. It is known as being demonic. It is a demonic spirit, and it needs to be cast out. We need to shatter the lie and break that today before we even go any further into the new year. And you stand firm in what the Lord wants from you, and not what, oh, well, this is the way that we do this. This is the way that we do that. And otherwise, you're going to end up losing out on so many things that the Lord has for you. You're not going to go forward. You're not going to step out in faith and see what new things He has for you. You know, um, it's that there are. It comes down to that again, that there are, where I see that there are people that are in the pulpits that I wonder, why are they even in there? They're not taking care of. They're not taking care of their flock. You know, they're they're just sticking by, well, this is how we do. This is how we do this. And you'll laugh about this, but sometimes I need just something. I like background noise while I'm working on my homework. But I don't like to have a lot of something where it's like, oh man, I'm hearing all kinds of swearing. So I'll throw on something that I know is safe. And one of the things I know is safe is like one of the old series from the Waltons. And so, I mean, people laugh about the Waltons, and I finally, sat down and watched the series, watched the whole thing, and yeah, I was like, wow. But it was safe, and for the most part, it had some good storylines, but throughout it all, it was very, they were Baptists. I don't know what kind of Baptists. They were Southern Baptists. They were some sort of strict Baptist, but they kept bringing it up. We don't do that kind of thing. We're Baptists. We don't listen to that. We're Baptists. You can't wear that dress. We're Baptists. And I thought, wow, wow, how that's what freedom is in that, and convince these people if you're happy and laughing, that's not you. You're not supposed to be happy and laughing. You're supposed to be very sober, and you can't laugh, and you can't have fun, and you can, and I thought, who came up with that? Because I sure am glad that things have moved from that. That I'm a traditional Baptist woman, and I don't, or um, that really took me. It took me aback because I thought that's legalism, and Jesus destroyed that. Why are they still in it? And that made no sense to me. So I thought, we're going to start this series off with this. So when the Lord starts, really speaking to you, and he's having you do things that might be a little contrary or a little, wow, the Lord's never, I've never gone down this road before, or I've never been asked to do this before, or where is the Lord taking me? What is in this road? And you back away from it because it's not something that you're comfortable with, or it's not something that you don't know how your pastors would feel about it. You need to take a minute and go, you know what does God want me to do? What is Jesus asking for me to do? He created me with these gifts, and he knows you better than you know yourself, than your pastor knows you, or anything else. And if Jesus has need of you, you need to go. The biggest thing that they're saying to people is that if Jesus asks you to do something, do it. Don't ask any questions. Just you do it. You make sure that you're hearing from him, of course, that it's you're not leaning to your understanding. But when the Lord asks you to do something, don't question it. You just do it. Just do it. Don't go back and go, well, according to our beliefs, we really don't. I don't really know how we'll do that. Don't do that. Break yourself from it. Listen to what the Lord wants you to do. Listen to what the Lord wants you to do, and your walk, he will bless you, and he will bless you in your walk, and you will see where he is maturing you as a Christian, and you don't know that he's making you for something that you never thought you would ever be. Maybe you dreamed it, or didn't ever think that you were good enough to be in that position. And he's like, okay, time for you to move this way. But your loyalty to what you've been brought up in is stronger. That's the last thing I want to talk about is your don't stay in a church out of loyalty because you've been there and your friends are there and you've been there for a long time, but you're not getting fed, and you're not getting what the spiritual food that you need. You're not getting it, but you stay there out of loyalty, and you stay there out of a social life, and you stay there because uh, they don't have anybody else. Don't do it. Don't stay out at a church where you're not being fed just to be loyal, just because it's comfortable. You will not grow. You will die there. And there's a lot of people that do. They just like, I've been here for 22 years. And yeah, okay, well, maybe, the pastor, sometimes doesn't get it, but, we all work it out. But I've been here, I'm the usher, I'm the bishop, or I've this and this, and this is how we do things. And, I don't need to. I've been here long. Don't do it. You're missing out. This is where you're going to have to really look and see, am I hanging on to my religion, my church, or am I stepping out in faith and listening to what God wants? And that is where you're going to have to shatter that lie. And it's very hard for some people because some people, they don't want to give that up. They've been with it all their life. But when God calls you, you got to go. You got to go. And that's the thing that the Pharisees could never understand. It's like, you know, they know people that were faithful with the law of Moses, and then Jesus came to them and, you know, changed their life, and they began to follow Jesus, and they're like, wait a minute, where are you going? What are you doing? So, and it's like, we got to stop this guy. And I think that was the biggest reasons that they went after Jesus, because Jesus pulled them out of that, you know. And so that is something that I really want you to take on board, um, as you go on this week. I mean, I don't know how many people I'm reaching. Maybe I'm just reaching one. Maybe I'm talking to myself. But this is the word, and that the Lord has given me to share. And let me make this clear, that everything that I do, discuss, and I talk about, I'm right there included. I'm not standing there going, you, and you. I'm part of that as well. So when I'm speaking, you know, singing to the choir myself, I'm not, I'm not uh, exempt from anything. In fact, because it convicts me so much, that's what makes it even more of an urgency to want to get this out here to people. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Do not let that demonic spirit, that demonic religious spirit, have hold on you. Don't make it let you feel guilty, fearful, because we know that those two things are not of God. Listen to what the Spirit of the Lord is saying to you, and listen to that. Even when you got to just take a deep breath and step out in faith, you will be glad that you did. And that this is the first lie that I wanted to shatter. Um, for next week, we'll be tackling, I don't want to, I'm not sure which one I'm going to do next week, but it's just a continuation of this whole lies that we've all been caught up in, that we've been living, that we've been going along with. And it wasn't until it wasn't until you look at it and go, wait a minute, this isn't this isn't adding up. Wait a second. After all this time, this isn't this. And before I go, um, I will say that when I did try to bring some of the truth to a Christian group, they deleted everything I wrote and they kicked me out. They made a big deal about speak the truth, no matter who likes it or not, if they get offended. So I spoke the truth, and I got kicked out. My comment got deleted, and I get kicked out and blocked. They can't get in. So how does that work? You know? Um, and then they start with know your truth. And there's no such thing as your truth. My truth, your truth. There's only the truth. And if it lines up with the Bible, then you know that is the truth. I can't stress this anymore, about this. Um, what I will say in every episode that I do here, research it for yourself. When you go and you're doing your Bible study, research about the religious spirit. Take it on. And, you know, take what I say and take it on and research everything that I talk about. Research it for yourself. Don't just go, oh, listen to what she said. Take what I say and take that football and run with it and see what else you may discover, you know, that you can add in your life. Now, if there's anyone, any of our listeners today that would like to hear more, that have questions for me, that would or disagree with me, any pastors out there that are listening that have that disagree with me, that would like to talk with me, you can reach me at my email at drcyndi at axmediagroup.com. Again, that's Dr. Cyndi, Cyndi, at axmediagroup.com. And I will be more than happy to read your emails. I would love to hear your input, your feedback on everything that I talk about, and see what you think. And maybe you need prayer. Maybe you haven't even given your life to Christ yet. Email me. Let's talk. And we can take care of that and lead you in the right direction. Um, I don't know how much more time that I have, but that's all I've got going for today. So I will wrap this up and keep your lamps full of oil, and see you later.